or so of recording much less extreme styles of music, I'm back to recording metal, and I've been really trying to refine my process. But one major sticking point for me has been my bass tone. Now, part of that is to be expected, of course, because getting a really powerful low end is really important to the overall sound of a heavy mix. And don't get me wrong, I'm very close to where I think I need to be. But in an effort to understand every part of the bass recording signal chain, I've been doing a lot of experimenting. And the last test, at least for me, is to figure out what kind of bass strings I want to use. Now, there's a pretty significant debate in the audio world about this. On the one hand, a poll of my Instagram followers showed that like 90% of people defaulted to stainless steel strings for heavy bass tones. But on the other hand, some of my favorite bass players, be that Nolly Getgood of Periphery fame or Amos Williams of Tesseract, seem to swear by their nickel strings, or at least as far as I can tell from some basic online searching. So I decided to put it to the test. I have here two sets of strings from Stringjoy, and they're identical except for the material that they're made out of. They're both standard long scale strings with a gauge of 45 to 105. The bass that I'm using today is my Squier Contemporary Jazz bass, which, despite the low price tag, is a really killer sounding instrument. It's tuned to drop E flat, which is a half step up from standard except for the low string, which is tuned down a half step to E flat. One note before we get into things is that I'm here to play heavy music. There are a few of these demos elsewhere on YouTube that cover other styles of music, and if that's what you're looking for, I'd recommend you go there. I'm going to include a clean tone here just for the sake of comparison, but it's going to be mostly distorted bass tones because that's most of what I use. With that out of the way, let's get into it. First up is going to be a demo in a full mix, flipping between the two sets of strings. There's a full breakdown of the bass signal chain in the description if that's something that you care about, but it is the same for both sets of strings. And now some soloed clips on a few different tones. If you like the tones that I got in this video, I've included a link in the description that will allow you to download all of the Parallax presets that I used. They're completely free, if you want them, that's where they are. So what am I hearing from the different sets of strings? Immediately, the nickel strings sounded a lot more consistent to me. They offer a really solid low end and sort of the lowest mids, especially in the mixed version, which I really enjoyed. The high end is present, but not sharp, and is still well audible above the mid-range of the guitars. The stainless steel strings are very dynamic, with a wide frequency range. What they gain in range, however, I feel like they lose in consistency. I feel like they only respond well in the low end right after the initial pick transient, and then after that the sustain shifts much more into the mid-range. They also definitely have more high end than the nickel strings, but I would consider it more harshness and less presence. But that's just what I'm hearing. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I've included download links for some DI tracks in the description. You're welcome to mess around with those as you see fit. Of course, the best comparison ultimately for you is to just buy both sets of strings and see which one you prefer. Ultimately, I think nickel strings are going to be better for my taste at the moment. In the kind of mixes that I'm going for, building off of a solid low end is really important. Plus, the consistency in the top end without it becoming harsh is something that plays really well with the kind of guitar tones that I like to get. And while I definitely had an easier time getting the nickel strings to play well with my distorted guitar tones, I found the harshness to be problematic in other areas as well. When playing clean with the stainless steel strings, I found it really hard to get a consistent, warm tone. In fact, I had to record the clean clip from before a bunch of times in order to get it to sound the way that I wanted it to. But it was this mid-forward quality that made me actually prefer the stainless steel strings when it came to playing slap bass. And as far as playing feel goes, I found the nickel strings to be far smoother. The stainless steel does feel a little bit rougher. You know, if you're into that sort of thing. It's only an added benefit then that nickel strings tend to be less expensive than their stainless steel counterparts. I think that's it for me. If you enjoyed this video, I highly recommend that you hit the subscribe button down below and the little bell icon next to it. I do a lot of cool stuff on this channel, and I'd love to see you for the next video. Take care.